Hello, one and all. Jasper here, and sorry for the wait on this episode, but I'm back with DJ Fella as we are now going to tackle the final episode to the second season of House of the Dragon.
Yay.
And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This episode, it's not the worst. I feel like I have to say that often. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not a good episode in my eyes. Fucking, I don't care about the Olympics.
What? What
Sorry,
do the Olympics have to do? You get
sorry.
an ad?
Yeah, there's something with the notifications that my computer has. Every time, like ever since the Olympics started, I get these bullshit notifications that are driving me insane.
Are you on Windows 11?
Yeah, I think so.
Huh.
Anyways,
I think you can turn that off.
I know, but I'm too lazy to figure it out.
Well, yeah. So this episode, I'm with you on your opinion of it. It's not the worst episode. It's just kind of disappointing as a season finale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. I don't want to sound like we fall into the camp of people who are like, you have to have a big battle every episode in order for this show to be entertaining. But I think that a big battle in the season finale is kind of nice, or at least some sort of major,
Development.
dramatic moment. I guess the writers probably thought they had a major dramatic moment with the final scene, but yeah, the episode lacks the punch that I would really like from a finale.
So
Um,
you won't hear me do this often, but I will very slightly defend the writers here because I believe initially there was supposed to be 10 episodes for this second season, and those final two episodes supposedly would actually be a part of a battle or would be the battle that they kind of set up in this episode. But a couple of months before filming began, HBO said, nah, we're going two episodes less this time. At least that's what I've heard. That's what one of the writers said. The other one, Brian, who's kind of the head writer, said they thought eight episodes would be better. But it is weird because one of my biggest criticisms of this season is that it's not like nothing happens, but it just feels like such a slog to get through in some cases, in some episodes.
yeah, I could see that. It definitely, the pacing could use some work, and the way they show, I guess, important character moments could use maybe better emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's lack of it. Like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with, like, say, Damon's character in this season, where he's seeing weird visions and stuff. But I never felt like there was quite like a good punch where it's like, oh, so this is where Damon's character's going, or like, oh, this is what Damon's main conflict like it has been for this season, or something like that.
I
Like it just felt like kind of a weird esoteric exploration of his character, and it never like fully landed on like a solid point for me.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that Damon's development this episode, in my eyes, feels very cheap and lazy and a very poor decision overall.
If I'm being totally honest, I don't really remember what all happens with Damon in this episode, but I'm sure I'll be reminded before we're done.
Sounds good. But anyways, we start off this episode and we're actually with Tywin Lannister in Essos chatting with it's supposed to be the Triarchy, but this just feels like a bunch of pirates. Like it's not a real actual government situation. These are just lowlives that he's chatting to.
Yeah, they definitely. I don't know. They seem like they hold authority, but they don't feel like they're structured.
Yeah, it's like, and I take issue with this as a book reader because the Triarchy it's called the Triarchy because it's three large cities, and each of these cities, kind of a comparison. It's like if you were having a meeting with the Northern Lord, the Lord of the Vale, and the Lord of the Stormlands. That's kind of what these institutions are power-wise. It's like three kingdoms.
Right.
But here, it's just like, first off, the free cities are supposed to be ruled by a bunch of magisters. It's, it's like a corporate kind of system. But these are just...
Corporate or republic?
Corporate. Like, if you have the most money, you're kind of in charge.
Oh, okay. They're cyberpunking out.
Yeah, but we just get these pirates just sitting down. They don't give off any sort of, these are magisters. They're incredibly wealthy. As a book reader, it bugs me, though I'm guessing it's not too much of an issue for you.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it too much, but I did have like a vague sense of like, this doesn't feel like the leaders of city states. Like you said, these guys just kind of feel like, I don't know, they don't really give off pirate vibes, but just kind of mercenary. They almost feel like mercenary leaders more than kings.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish for the free cities, especially since so much of George's stories, except for Danny's chapters, but good fucking god, but so much of like the stories in Westeros. I wish they kind of gave us a bit more of the free cities, especially since we get so little of them often. But anyways, this meeting kind of back and forth, I was okay with it, but then this leader of the pirates, this bitch, shows up out of nowhere. She's the one in charge. And
it seemed a little bit weird to me that like all these guys are like, oh, we can't do anything if this random captain doesn't approve of you.
Yeah, which I guess she's supposed to be the king of the pirates or some shit, but I have issues with her. It's first off, it seems so like it's like they're trying to make her a strong, you're in the modern times a strong female character. But
yeah,
something that I will say for previous strong female characters, even the ones I really don't like, is at least they felt competent, Like, as bad as some strong female characters are, they were good at what they did. They were boring, but they were good at what they did. This bitch, I do not see how she's been able to hold this position of authority in any sense of the word.
Well, I disagree. I disagree that past strong female characters have been competent, but I do agree that she does appear to be incompetent.
I mean, without getting into exacts, but that's the thing. Like, she's supposed to be played off as, she's the toughest one, and she refuses to follow anyone who can't beat her in fucking mud wrestling. Jesus.
Yeah, why was it mud wrestling? Were they trying to turn me on?
I don't know, but like, you know what? I actually kind of want to, if you don't mind, I'm going to skip ahead. Like, we can just, since there's so little of her and Tylan throughout this, I think we can handle like all their shit together. And First off, if she's so capable, why the fuck is Tylan kind of not kicking her ass, but giving her a run for her money? Like, that's what I mean. Tylan, like, I'm sure he's had some training, but there's no reason he should be winning, especially with how the story, I feel like, is trying to be told to us. Like, this doesn't make her look strong, it makes her look weak. Because it's fucking Thailand.
Yeah, to be fair, a reasonably in shape man will beat up a woman. Mm-hmm. So like I appreciate that they showed that like even the toughest of women aren't going to be able to completely dominate a man in a fight. There's something about that I can be like, hey, that's a step in the right direction. But I agree, like, if she's supposed to be, like, this badass leader of the pirates, her getting beat up by a fucking diplomat is not the best look.
No, and
Yeah, I mean, I guess she didn't get beat up. She did just like got hit. He hit her a couple of times.
Yeah, it was a 50-50 trade, you could say, but that's like my thing. It's a confliction.
50-50 trade is like she has a bloody lip, but like Hyland is like exhausted by the end of the fight.
Listen, as far as I'm aware, if you're the first one to draw blood, you win.
Hyland's mouth is bloody. He's just also way muddier.
Anyways, the point being is,
I think it is ridiculous to try and insinuate that a woman is going to be like physically dominant enough to hold this position the way they imply that she holds this position. But it's basically par for the course with modern writing.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of my issue. They want us to believe that she holds this position because of her physical capabilities, but then when we see her physical capabilities, even though it would be more accurate to a real situation and the situation of Game of Thrones, they're just too much in conflict. Because surely if Thailand could somewhat put up a decent fight against her, there should be tons of guys in her own, like, crew that could do the same thing.
Any warrior would absolutely decimate her in mud wrestling. But I don't know. I mean, it's add another strong female character to the pile.
Here's the crazy thing. I didn't want to really talk about this too much, but I'm not 100% sure if this character is supposed to be female.
Nah, she's a dyke.
Well, here's the thing. So the actor for this character is trans. I believe they are male transitioning to female.
Really?
Yeah. So that's like the thing I'm wondering, like, is this supposed to be a woman, or is it supposed to be like a male transitioning to a female character? I'm presuming we're supposed to look at this character as a female, but what makes it harder is that this original character was male in the books, like, and gay. So it's like, I'm not 100% sure.
Whoa! So they kept the character being gay, but changed the gender.
Maybe?
But also casted a trans actor. That is a lot of messages. There's a lot of mixed message going on there.
I think our initial assumptions are correct, though, because when I first watched this episode, I thought it was a woman. So I think it's supposed to just be a lesbian pirate, is what we got
here. Yeah, I mean that was my takeaway after watching the episode, was that it was dyke. But I mean, I guess props to the actor. I mean, strong jawline, I'll say that, but pulls off a woman pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that's supposed to how we're taking it, because you can't believe that this medieval society has any sort of like successful, unless you want to bring in magic, but there's nothing there for transitioning. So
yeah, they can't even pull off a C-section. There's no way they're doing full gender surgery. So yeah, I think in the context of Game of Thrones, we're supposed to be assuming she's a woman from birth.
Yeah, but it's just a lot of, and like, these aren't exactly criticisms that I'm saying, but it's just a lot of interesting aspects given the actor, the character that is being adapted, how they handle it. It's just a little confusing.
Yeah, I mean, my fundamental issue would still come back to like the genericness of a strong female character portrayed in this way, where it's like, oh yeah, all the things that make a strong female character strong are just embodying toxic masculinity. Like all the things that everybody hates when men do, when women do it, it's really empowering.
Well, that's because women don't want to admit it, but they like a little bit of toxicity in the masculinity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's ever been up for debate. Women love it when men are fucking assholes, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
When seeing it for the 1 millionth time in a story, especially a story like this one where they've already, like, they've made Alicent this big old character. I don't know. It's like, it's just a little tiring.
Yeah. Anyways, after this kind of back and forth, we see Aemond, who had just recently burned down a fiefdom or a village, something along those lines. Not a lot to say there. He's obviously very upset that now he's kind of in a rough spot given the war.
He's throwing a little sissy fit. I guess this is them showing Aemon is the piece of shit, I guess. Like, there's been evidence of it before, but him just going and burning a bunch of civilian homes is like, okay. Yeah, they for sure want us to know that Aemon would be a terrible king.
But luckily, the very next scene, I think, is actually pretty darn good. It's similar to what we've gotten previously, but it's Aegon with Larys, and Larys is pretty much warning him, we need to get you the fuck out of here.
Yeah, which I will say, I'm curious what Aegon's plotline is going to be moving forward. Because, I mean, obviously it seems like they're giving up control to Aemond for the foreseeable future, having Aegon run away. So I'm expecting something of a redemption arc for him. I feel like that's usually the way you go after having someone kind of transformed through some traumatic incident. You usually have them go through some sort of redemption where they kind of learn from their mistakes.
Very interesting. I won't tell you if you're right or not, because obviously I know what's going to happen. I question that a little bit because my book knowledge is becoming less and less useful as the season goes on. But I will say, from both a show watching perspective and an adaptation perspective, Aegon to me in this second season has been reliably a really damn good character.
Right, I'm not saying the character writing needs redemption or anything like that. I'm just saying Aegon as a person needs redemption in order to be like a good king.
Yeah. No, I get you. I just can't comment too much on what I think's going to happen. So I'm just trying to fill it in with my own thing. And in regards to this scene, the back and forth that they have, it's very reminiscent of, in my eyes, when Larys came to Aegon initially and tried to kind of connect with him because of his own disfigurement.
Right. I do think that that's a super interesting character dynamic to draw together. Mm-hmm. Is like Larys was already kind of brown nosing with Aegon, but to have him kind of like, I don't know, it feels more genuine, mm-hmm. the way that he's currently trying to help Aegon because he can now relate to a cripple.
Yeah. And I really did enjoy this scene. I know there were definitely some people who weren't a fan of how Aegon started talking about like what happened to his dick after all that went down. But I don't know. I feel like that's kind of in character for Aegon to be a bit crude and crass, even when in a moment like this.
Well, and it's especially relevant considering he no longer has a proper heir. So the fact that he doesn't have proper reproductive organs either is going to have an effect on like how he would have to be king, how he would have to act as a king.
Yeah.
Because if he is king and his only heir is a daughter, then he's in a tough position where it's like his only legitimate claim to the throne was that he's a man, whereas Rhaenyra, who was, the one who was made the heir to the throne, is a woman. He can't then make his daughter heir to the throne. So it's like, who who do you give it to then?
Yeah.
So it is relevant in a lot of ways. So I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I think this, if I remember correctly, though, I think this is it's not the only good scene in this episode, but this is probably the best scene in the episode for me.
I'll hold off on any opinions like that until we get through, because it's been like over a week since I watched the episode.
Yeah. All right. But right after this, we get updated on Reyna in the Vale, and I guess her guards and my opinion of her are the same, because I wouldn't give a fuck about her either, and I'm hoping that she dies out here. But I don't think that's going to happen.
That would be hilarious if they spend all this time on her and then she just like gets torched by the dragon.
Oh man, wouldn't that be an amazing? That's how you subvert expectations. That's how
that
you
would
do
be
it.
a subversion of expectations. No, it still wouldn't be good. It would still have been a massive waste of time. But yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna just a thought I've had right now. I don't know that I could defend it in court, but I think subverting expectations, like 9 times out of 10, is bad. It's just bad writing.
That's the thing. Subverting expectations is a very complicated thing, I feel. And I think the most popular examples of subverting expectations are not actually subverting expectations. Like, as a Game of Thrones guy, obviously, I see very often one of the most popular examples of, hey, this is how you subvert expectations well, is the Red Wedding. The issue
There's plenty of foreshadowing for the Red Wedding.
That's the thing. It's only subversion in that it's common in media for the heroes and the good guys to always win. But the story itself is still consistent. You can see all the red flags leading up to it, from Robb making his mistake to the Northern Lords becoming more and more rough, Roose letting Jaime go, going to Walder, who everyone talks you never trust. Like, there's plenty of hints. You really should see it coming from a mile away.
Yeah, like a really good twist is something that when you re-watch the movie or the TV show or whatever, the twist becomes better. Mm-hmm. Because you can see all of the signs that you initially missed that the twist was coming. Like if you just throw a twist in for the sake of a twist, if you just subvert expectations for the sake of subversion, then it's not good writing. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, when people talk about subverting expectations, what they generally do is they just go, hey, there was no way you could have guessed this was going to happen. And it's like, yeah, there is no way I could have guessed that was going to happen. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I think a common example I've heard from people in regards to subverting expectations is, if I order a pizza and when I open the box and instead there's a newspaper in there, you're right, I'm going to be surprised. I didn't see that coming. That doesn't change the fact that I hate what I got.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that's why, like, a lot of the big surprise moments in the books and the show, whether it be the Red Wedding or Eddard Stark's execution, they were set up. So rewatching them, you can almost, I mean, it's probably not the best word, but you can kind of cringe a bit whenever you see these heroes making these choices. And you say, that's going to lead to this, that's going to lead to this, that's where it all fucked up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but when you rewatch Game of Thrones and you're watching you're watching Ned make the honorable decisions, you're just like, no, please, don't be such a good guy. This isn't the place to be a good guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which this whole conversation has almost nothing to do with
Reyna.
The episode, because there is no subversion that actually happens in this episode. We're just hoping.
Hoping, and I don't think it's coming. But the next scene, we have a bit of I wouldn't call it an altercation, but an interaction between Hugh, Ulf, and Jacaerys.
I would call it an altercation between Jacaerys and Ulf.
Mm-hmm. Where I don't know, Ulfus to me is coming off as like I get he's like lowborn, so maybe he wouldn't know everything, but he is coming off as incredibly socially inept.
He's yeah he I don't know. It's either like he has a very good understanding of just how important dragon riders are right now, or he's just completely socially retarded.
Mm-hmm. Which,
but I do find him infuriating. Like I found Ulf a kind of amusing, entertaining character before this episode, but in this episode he was just pissing me off. Like he was just being such a fucking brazen asshole.
Yeah, and like I guess you could. The issue I have with it's like I feel like they either need to pull back a little bit on these social, shortcomings that he has in regards to dealing with the High Lordship or nobility, or they should have gone further. Because when Jace like really confronts him, you do see Ulf get a little kind of scared and intimidated. But then he's right back to the same thing later on. So I think if they had made him like after taming a dragon, just one of the biggest, most egotistical jackasses, I think that would have been better than kind of what we've gotten in this. Because I think in a later scene when he's like having a meal with everyone, I think that was a bit more accurate and in character for
him. Yeah, I agree that this scene, his like the way he acts at the end felt like a weird kind of twist, because it seemed like he was being a bit of a jackass on purpose for the most of the scene, but then he kind of becomes subdued and like kind of shows regret by the end of the scene. No, cat, do not chew on that wire. I will freaking throw you.
Anyways, so yeah, and not really anything to comment on Hugh and Jace. Obviously, he's still in character as far as not liking the idea of bastards being like not bastards, but other bastards being dragon risers. He can be the only one.
Yeah, Jace is still rocking his hypocrisy. Although, to be fair, the way Ulf was acting, I think he was well within his rights there.
Yeah, I mean, putting your feet up.
But you also notice he doesn't do anything with Hugh, because Hugh's being a good guy.
Yeah, Hugh's being polite. Anyways, after this scene, we have Rhaenyra kind of interacting with Corlys, and it's okay. I don't think there's a whole lot to comment on. She's talking to him about Alan? No, Alan's the bald one.
Is that true?
Yeah, Alan's the bald one, so Adam is the dragon rider.
Okay. If you say so.
I'm reasonably confident.
Yeah, I don't know, this conversation feels a little bit like just exposition.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know pretty much, like, if you've been watching and paying attention, you know pretty much everything that's talked about here.
Yeah, there is a little bit, and now Corlys is advising Rhaenyra that with this advantage, she needs to go on the attack. She needs to be the aggressor. Because now you have to use the advantage that you have, or else you'll lose it.
Yeah, I guess we do kind of get Corlys' perspective on things, but that also feels like common sense. Like, okay, now you've got all the dragons you wanted, so why don't you take advantage of that, you dumb gash?
Yeah, and we also get on the topic of Helena, because Corlys brings her up as she's possibly a dangerous enemy for the Blacks, because she is also a dragon rider.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I mean, it's good. I feel like even though, I think what are your thoughts on like Helena ever going into battle?
I can't imagine Helena herself like controlling the dragon, but I could see them having her just get on the dragon and then have the dragon pretty much do what dragons do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at some point in this episode there's mention that Helena's dragon is like old as hell.
So Helena's dragon, we're not given a specific date, but there's some theorizing about when and where, but she was born when Aegon the Conqueror was already king of Westeros. So going back, because Vermithor, so she would, so she would be around, like, Vermithor's age. So that would probably be a decent comparison.
Do these cats know that I'm like doing the one thing where I'd like to not be interrupted?
I think that's how cats work.
Jesus Christ, I hate cats. I hate them so much. They bother me not that much, generally speaking, but right now they're just going crazy. They're going crazy all over my desk. Alright, but back to something at hand. So her dragon's the same age as Vermithor?
I mean, we don't have a date for her. That's the issue. We have a date for Vermithor. We know he was born in 34 AC, whereas the latest that Dreamfire could be born is I think 37, because that's when Aegon died. Well, then again, the wiki says in or shortly before 32, so she could be older than Vermithor, but just didn't grow as much, maybe because it's a she-dragon. Maybe boy dragons are bigger.
Ah. That seems unlikely, but possible.
Yeah, so she had to have been born before 32 because it was the year 32 where she was bonded with someone.
Okay. So pretty big dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's definitely older than Vermithor then. So she would be a very dangerous dragon. Do I still have you?
Yeah, I'm throwing cats. I'm literally chucking cats across the room.
Are you doing the shotgun style?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I was just, it seemed to me like Helena, because again, it's like, how much control does the dragon rider have?
Right.
You know, like the dragons know how to fight.
Just put her on it and say, go that way and see what happens.
Yeah. She just needs to ride it.
I could reasonably assume that, especially given kind of how there's hints at the bonding between a dragon rider and a dragon somewhat being magical, that the dragon kind of inherits personality traits from the rider. Kind of how people say, like, if you have a pet, the pet kind of starts acting like the owner in some ways. Like maybe kind of something along that lines, which would make Dreamfire less practical to use in combat. But still, she's a big ass dragon. She can help a lot.
For sure. Especially when you consider that Vhagar, when you consider that Vhagar is going to be like potentially going into battles that are like 3v1, having a second dragon as like, one of the bigger ones there would make a pretty big difference.
Yeah. At the same time, though, it's not surprising that Helena, at least in this episode, they might change it later, but in this episode, she doesn't seem to have any sort of inclinations into going into battle. And it's like, how can you force her? Let's be real about this. How can you force her?
It's true, but they do need to force her. They're at a severe dragon disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we've discussed it before, but the guy with the dragon at Old Town. What size dragon are we talking there?
I mean, that would be comparable, I believe, to Jace because
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Damon and Jace are both like are. Did I say Damon? I meant Daron. That's his name. And there's so many fucking Darons. God damn it. But anyways, he's, I believe, roughly the same age as Jace is, because he's the youngest son of Alicent, but Jace is the oldest son of Rhaenys, so it's, they're close.
Rhaenyra, you mean?
Yeah, fuck it.
I'm tracking. So yeah, it like they need another big dragon.
Mm-hmm. And I think and they did say, I think that, like, during this whole thing, that Darren's dragon just now came of age, which, no, that's ridiculous. If he's the same age as Jace, then his dragon.
I don't think they said he came of age, but I think they said he's joining the battle.
Maybe. Is it this episode? I'll comment on again if it comes up in this episode. But, anyways, after this back and forth between Rhaenyra and Corlys, we're over in Harrenhal again. And we see Daemon putting in kind of like getting the Riverlands armies together, kind of setting everything up for the army. And who but Sir... fuck his name... shows up.
Sir Alfred Broom.
Yeah, thank you. So, Broom? Fucking Broom? That's his last name?
His last name is Broom. He's a broom guy. Like sweeping.
I hate that name.
And Broom has not come here to fulfill the wishes of Rhaenyra, as we soon discover.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, it's not... he pretty much throws his lot in with Daemon, a decision I assume he regrets at the end of this episode.
Yeah, it didn't seem like the most well thought out idea when he initially does it, but yeah, by the end of the episode, he really looks like a dumbass.
Yeah, this seems very risky. Like, I get he's fairly confident that Daemon is acting on his own, like his own desires to be king, but still, I wouldn't do this. I would kind of just be around Daemon, maybe like say you send some nice words to Rhaenyra, like kind of earn his trust before you start going like, hey, you should be king.
Yeah, doing this like literally as soon as you show up is pretty bold, I would say. But to be fair, he doesn't know that Daemon's been getting fucking crazy ghost visions from Harren.
Yeah.
And having his entire character shifted as a result. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. But I
Who
mean,
knows?
Also, they're not, like, it's one of those things, like, they're here having, like, a conversation you definitely don't want people to hear. Keep an eye out, because the fucking strong Castellan just hangs out in the middle of the stairway and hears every goddamn thing they say.
Yeah, they weren't the best at being quiet, I guess. Like, because the dude was, like, not close. How loud were they talking?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like something you might want to lower your voice for a little bit.
I will say, though, I mean, this, and, I guess he's still technically a turncloak and a traitor, because he's kind of switching over to Daemon. I will say, though, I think he has reasonable motivation to want to support Daemon over Rhaenyra, considering of all the council members on the black side, he's the one who butt heads with her the most. So it's not surprising that he would think that Daemon is a better choice, especially because he's taking far more action. Though, honestly...
Well, and also you gotta keep in mind that Rhaenyra sending him to parlay with Daemon it was kind of her
getting rid of
just trying to get him off the council.
a bit of a slight.
So I fully believe that he would be kind of like turning against Rhaenyra, but I guess it's really hard to excuse just crazy stupidity.
Yeah, and I'm worried that there aren't going to be any consequences for him for doing this. Like, I feel like he should have immediately been executed in that later scene, right?
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're going to just kind of let him keep going, keep chilling out.
All right. But now we're over at King's Landing. Aemond is talking with Jasper about how they were able to...
One thing I think we should talk about is what the fuck happened with Alicent last episode?
You mean like the camping trip?
Yeah, she went on a camping trip and she went like the last scene we see with Alicent is her swimming in a lake.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about there. It was stupid. It was useless. And I think she was trying to kill herself, but she was really bad at it.
I don't think she was trying to kill herself. The fact that she's alive in this episode confirms to me that she was not trying to kill herself.
All right, hold on. Did Alicent try to kill herself?
She didn't try to kill herself. But like obviously they were trying to like go for some symbolic thing. There was, I'm positive that there's some symbolic meaning in her swimming out in the middle of the lake. But it's like you've got to attach the symbolism to the actual to the reality, to the material, to like what's physically happening in the story. And her swimming out in the middle of the lake for no reason is insane behavior.
Yeah, so this is on Screen Rant, so take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But Alicent swam in the lake as a symbolic rebirth after feeling shamed and unclean.
But how is she reborn? She's not fucking Christian. It's not like John the Baptist was out there baptizing her ass. So I don't think that it seems a bit odd to me to use something such a Christian piece of symbolism as like going into water as a form of rebirth.
Well, to be fair,
if anything in Game of Thrones, fire is far more associated with rebirth than water.
Well, one could make the argument because she is a follower of the Seven, and the faith of the Seven by far has the most kind of, connections with Christianity in how it's worshipped, kind of the seven, and I think the seven faces of the god is kind of a similarity to how, there's three forms of God in Christianity. You have Jesus, like it's one God, but kind of like three, I don't know the proper term, but the Holy Spirit.
Trinity.
Yeah, the Trinity. I think that's kind of how it is. So her being a follower of the Seven, it's not too surprising they would use Christian themes in this regard.
Okay, I didn't realize that the Seven was... So would you say the Seven is monotheistic?
That's a big word.
They're worshipping one god with the Seven?
Yeah, I think so, because it's like one god with seven faces, if I understand it correctly.
Interesting. Because, I guess my impression of the religions in Game of Thrones was that the Lord of Flames or whatever is the only like monotheistic religion, whereas everybody's worshipping either individual quote unquote gods or pantheons of gods.
Yeah, so it can be a little bit confusing, especially when a common phrase said in the books and the show is thank the old gods and the new. So it's in a plural sense that there is more than one new god, but it is stated that the members of the faith worship the Seven, who are one a single deity with 7 aspects.
Oh, I could see that. I guess you're definitely getting into some pretty weird symbolism. I would have to. I guess I would have to dig deeper into the lore to know whether that's something. Whether I could buy the whole swimming in a lake as a rebirth symbolism,
I mean,
but
I don't think they go enough in detail. Like, I don't think there's any indication that followers of the 7 baptize. So,
yeah, certainly not. Certainly not from any of the on-screen stuff. There's no there's no baptisms ever. There is like some universal symbolism in the crossing of a body of water being a moment of, I guess, change.
mhm.
If you think about like uh, George Washington crossing the Delaware, or when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, stuff like that, where it's almost a universal moment that people can recognize and be like, okay, that's a moment of significant change. But again, the Game of Thrones or the House of the Dragon hasn't really established that. It's like, I don't know, I guess a prominent piece of symbolism. So I find it dubious.
Yeah, but anyways, it was pointless. Like, the only good thing about it was that it was all we got from Alicent from that episode. I think less Alicent is better.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Alicent's such a frustrating character for me.
She is for
'Cause, like,
everyone. I think she's legit the most hated character in this series now.
so I will say I watched. They did an EFAP episode on episodes 3 and 4. I just watched the parts for episode 3 because I was just curious about what they thought about the end of episode 3, and they seemed like they were really liking Allison, which kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I've also, now that I've like kind of finished the season and kind of cemented my thoughts, but still am curious what other people think. Uh, I've had my disagreements with EFAP a couple of times. This is probably the strongest I've ever disagreed with them.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling. But it did make me want to kind of, I don't know, go back and see if I was maybe being too harsh on her character or too negative. But yeah, I don't know. She just really doesn't fit in the story. Like, to me, it just feels like she doesn't belong in the story, and that she's being shoehorned in, which could be a product of you feeding me book knowledge, but I don't know. I think I just don't see why she's continued to be as important of a character as she has,
Well,
other than the writers just wanted to make two women be like the most important characters on each side.
yeah, it's entirely a disagreement I have with the authors in that they believe that House is a Dragon is kind of a war between Rhaenyra and Alicent. And definitely early on, there's definitely like a rivalry between the two, a confrontation. But it changes, it develops, and then it more so becomes Rhaenyra. Some people say the war is Rhaenyra versus Aegon. I personally think it's more accurate to say that this is a war between Daemon and Aemond. I think that's more accurate when reading through the books. I think that those two are really the driving force in a lot of things in the books.
I I could definitely see how the story could be there. From where we are right now, I could see how that could be the driving forces, and that would make a lot of sense
Mm-hmm.
if it was Damon Day, because those characters have such an interesting parallels as well as such distinct differences, right? Where like Damon, it feels like the one sin he truly would never commit is kinslaying, and Aemon, the main sin that he has committed is kinslaying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're so similar, but they have such a strong dividing point that having them be the two characters that the war kind of centers around would be really interesting. But unfortunately, we haven't got that because we're not allowed to have cool, interesting white male main characters. We have to have women.
And I will say, to say that they're the center of the war isn't probably 100% accurate, but I do think they're kind of I think in the books, they're kind of the protagonists. And
yeah, like maybe the thematic center of the war, I would say. And again, it's like, that's also a fantastic way to gray things out, where it's like Damon's not necessarily a good guy, and Aemon's not necessarily a good guy, so it's like, who should win? Whereas with the way the show's been handling things, it's like, yeah, clearly the blacks are like better, I guess, than the greens. So
yeah,
I know who I'm rooting for.
Mm-hmm. And that just comes from, again, them taking out any real possibility for Rhaenyra to have any serious flaws. And some people have pointed out that she has flaws in the show, but it's like, it's just this itching in the back of my head. It's just like the show isn't presenting these as flaws.
Yeah, she's clearly a poorly written character. Like, she makes stupid decisions, but the show refuses to punish her for all the stupid decisions she makes.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm with you 100%. She's a flawed character, but the show does not realize it.
Yeah. Anyways, we went on a bit of a tangent here, and so now we can tackle the scene in King's Landing. We have Aemon kind of going back and forth with Jasper. When he hears about how she found dragon seeds, he makes the decision, okay, now we have to search every damn boat. But obviously the real meat of this kind of scene is when he shows up to where Alicent and Helena are.
Right. And he literally tries to drag Helena to go hop on a dragon.
Yeah, we got a war to fight, bitch. Let's go.
Yeah, which it is a tough situation the Greens find themselves. Where it's like, yeah, sending an autistic woman to war is rough. But when that autistic woman can mount a nuclear warhead, it's like, her objections, the fact that she doesn't really wanna, the fact that it's kind of harsh in her mellow, might not be that big a deal when we consider what's at stake.
Yeah, but I will say it does seem accurate that Helena would not want to do this at all, and I mentioned this before. It's very difficult to force a dragon rider to do anything.
For sure.
Even though Aemon, both dragon and person-wise, is physically stronger than her, I mean, at the end of the day, trying to force her can lead to more problems than solutions.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would argue that Aemon's approach is the correct one. Mm-hmm. But also, Helena is really shirking her responsibilities here.
Yeah. It's something if I was on the Greens, it's something I would greatly disagree with her on. But I'm not surprised, and I think it's well within her character to be shirking these duties in that way. Especially when the duties of a woman going into battle might be a bit iffy, even if she does ride a giant behemoth.
Yeah. And can we talk about how, god damn it, Alicent has flip-flopped again?
Do we
I thought that she was finally hardened to stop fucking putting the lives of her. Like, does she care about her children or not? That's the one question the show's been like unwilling to answer.
The
Does Allison give a single shit about her fucking shitty ass children?
the only
And the answer is yes or no, depending on what the writers need her to do in any given scene.
I mean,
And it's pissing me off.
I've been voicing my displeasure of her flipping off back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But this is something that's been going on since the first season. So she is consistently being inconsistent in what her motivation is on if she wants to keep her family safe or if she wants to help her former love interest. The only one we ever see her engage in any sort of like motherly conduct is Helena. She's only ever a mother to Helena. Aegon and Aemond get fuck and all. You know, it's that, she going back and forth, her motivation changes almost every episode, whether she cares and wants to keep her family safe or she wants her love interest from the previous season to become queen. She goes back and forth, but also the only time we ever see her being motherly is with Helena. Aemond, we get nothing of that, except maybe if you want to count the scene where she gets fired from the Small Council, and Aegon only after he gets crippled.
Yes. Yes, I agree with all of that. And I will say, in this very moment, I'm having some considerations that maybe if is having a character that's consistently inconsistent good? Is that something that can be good? I don't know. I haven't enjoyed Allison personally, but maybe if she's consistently inconsistent, I can't call her necessarily like an objectively bad character.
I think I can, because her motivations each time, it takes so little, so fucking little for her to flip-flop. Like, I give Allison a break through the first several episodes of the first season, because she's clearly, struggling on supporting her friend and whatnot, and not able to really believe that, her child's life is in danger. It's like a very back and forth thing. The moment, however, when she needed to be 100% on Team Green, on her kids, was when her son lost her eye. Anytime she starts switching after that, her reasoning and the thing that pushes her is so weak. Like, for example, after Aemon loses his eye, she's starting to get locked in. She's like, okay, Team Green, this is how we're going to have to do things from here out. But then she has a nice lunch or dinner at the family, and then she's like, oh, Rhaenyra, you're going to be a wonderful queen. Please come back. I want to spend more time with you. So now she's on Team Black just because she had a good time with Rhaenyra. And then she switches back over to Team Green because she misunderstood a dying man's, who's suffering from all sorts of mental issues, who is sometimes coherent, sometimes isn't. But he says, one little thing, Prince Aegon needs to be king or whatever. And that's...
Well, he didn't even say that. I don't remember exactly what the quote is, but it was more vague than that, I feel.
It doesn't matter. He could fucking say, Aegon, my son, must be king for Westeros to survive, and it would still be a weak motivation for her to jump back over to Team Green.
Yeah, but have you considered this fact? She's a woman.
Fuck, I knew you were going to say that.
No, I'm mostly joking. But no, seriously though, she is just kind of a woman who just kind of does whatever's easiest.
I think
whatever a man's told her to do most recently, that's kind of what she's on.
She's just a very and that's the thing. Her struggle at this point just seems so fake, so wishy-washy. There's she doesn't have any values. It feels.
Yeah. Yeah, she is, which I think some people would argue oh, but she's so deeply offended by the things that the Greens have done in order to like take over power. And it's like, yeah, but she's also willing to turn her back on that several times. She's turned her back on like she's gone Team Green several times. She's been Team Green for the majority of season 2. So her not being completely thrilled with the way Team Green is attaining power isn't really an argument for her to change sides on a dime.
How much you want to bet that in the 3rd season she's going to see, like, Rhaenyra's going to do something that really isn't that big of a deal, and Alicent's going to change back to Team Green? I'm willing, I'm willing to bet a lot of money.
The issue with Alicent, again, is that her character hasn't had a purpose since season 1 ended. Like, now that her children are grown up and making decisions for themselves, and she's not the wife of the king, her character is purposeless, so they keep, like, having her go through these fucking back and forth character arcs in order to try and make her seem relevant, but she's just not relevant. Nothing she does actually matters. She can't sway anyone to do anything. The only reason she's in the show is because they're really trying to convince us that it's 2 powerful women who are in charge of everything. And it's just not true.
Well, I don't even think that's it. I think they're keeping these two. I think they're keeping Alicent to show, hey, look how bad this patriarchal society is. And it's like, yeah, we know, kind of sucks, but this is medieval times. And the issue is, Alicent has no redeeming qualities.
Well, then it's like, how has the patriarchal society harmed Alicent?
I mean, if she was born a boy, then her life might be better.
Yeah, but it probably wouldn't be. I mean, I don't know. Like, Otto hasn't had the best time. Her brother kind of got fucked over, and he's just out fucking as Cole's bitch now. Doesn't seem like those guys are doing much better than she is.
Yeah, I mean, the issue for me is Alicent is just very weak in so many ways. There's just nothing to like about her at all in this season. I feel like every single episode, I just want her dead.
I don't want her dead. I just don't care.
But hey, if she dies, then we don't have to deal with her anymore.
It's true. It's true.
Anyways, next scene, we have Kristen sniffing the handkerchief Alicent gave him.
And, the boob rag.
Yeah. And Gawain, I assume seeing him sniffing the rag, just, dude, you're fucking my sister?
Yeah, which seems weird because she handed him the boob rag, like, with everybody watching. Like they were just out in the open. So I didn't really think that was, like, a big secret.
It's not just that, though. But the thing is, like, I'm a little confused how he figured it out. Not that it's impossible. There are definitely some hints. But also, drawing his sword and pointing it at Kristen in front of everyone and loudly saying, "Why you fucking my sister?" Like, I feel like this is a bad move for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it certainly undermines Cole's authority in a position where you probably don't want to be undermining Cole's authority. And, if things go slightly wrong here, he could very much be killing himself doing this. It's very much making a mountain out of a molehill.
Also, it seems weird for him to be so offended by this, considering his relationship with his sister doesn't seem like it's that strong,
Yeah.
Like, granted...
Yeah, like it...
When they were...
When we see...
Let me go first. When he was talking to Alicent about Darren, it started off very kind of cold, as they kept talking, and once they got to the topic of Darren specifically, it does change to be a bit more warm and somewhat sibling-ish. But for the most part, I feel like these two are very distant and don't have a whole lot of care for one another. I mean, Allison sent her brother on this mission that she thought was terrible and could easily result in everyone dying.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say something similar, where it's like the last conversation they had, it felt like a brother and a sister reconnecting for like the first time in decades, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like when we first see them introduced, when we see Gawain introduced, they had quite a bit of distance between them. So I don't see him getting this offended.
I mean, you could just say, like, basic honor. You're kind of defiling my sister out of wedlock. So even if you don't have a whole lot of love for your sister, you probably are kind of like pushed to kind of do something given the culture that they're growing up in. I do think how he goes about this, though, is incredibly short-sighted at best.
Yeah, yeah, and then he backs down. Cole retorts him by saying, "Actually, I'm kind of a nihilist, bro." And he goes, "Wow, that sucks. Your fucking worldview sucks, bro." And then that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Cole does say something based when he says that all of his problems were caused by women.
That's true. I did like that he acknowledged that, but he doesn't apologize for it.
Yeah.
He just goes like, "All of my problems are caused by women, but I don't have any control over that. Honor is just a mist that like goes away in the morning." It's like, no, dude, you had control of that.
You kind of fucked your own shit up in a little bit. Like, it takes two to tango, and you were ready to dance.
Yeah, and like lust is one of the sins that is, in my opinion, like easiest to not act on. You know, like lust is one of those things where it's like, yeah, just don't go around fucking random people.
Uh, well, to be fair, Cole doesn't have, Pornhub. So.
Yeah, but I think that makes it even easier.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's the easiest sin to not delve in any way. I'd probably, I don't know, maybe envy. Envy for me.
But... Envy? No, envy's just like an instant. You can't control envy hardly. You see something you want and you feel that envy, and it's like, oh shit, that already happened. I can't even stop it anymore.
Well, you can feel lust just by walking around and you see a girl with big tits and ass.
Yeah, but okay, but so then we come back to the fact of acting on it. Mm-hmm. It's like you feel pretty much all of the like major sins, the 7 deadly sins, people would put it. But in my opinion, like lust is pretty easy. I mean, they're all, except for maybe pride. Pride's pretty hard not to let control you. Mm-hmm. Which is why they call it the Big Kahuna.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess for me, I more often, and this might be getting a bit too personal, we might have to have this conversation another day, but for me, when it comes to the 7 sins, the ones that I feel the most and act on the most are different. Like, I feel envy, of course, but I don't often act on envy, you know? Though to be fair, it's kind of hard to act on envy. Like, if you act on envy, isn't that sort of more acting on greed?
Greed and envy are similar, but I would say like acting on greed would be centering your life around making money or something like that. Whereas acting on envy is probably, you'd probably call that just theft. Like
Oh,
whenever somebody steals something, that's acting on envy.
gotcha. Okay, but
So now that I've put some thought into that, envy is probably a little bit easier to not act on than lust. Nobody ever tempts you. Nobody ever actively tempts you to steal their stuff. Some people will actively tempt you to act on lust.
I mean, granted, I don't have a whole lot of experience, but it's easy to say I would never sleep with a woman when it's not often a woman comes over and gives me the choice.
Yeah, yeah. But I would say it's more likely for a woman to come over and give you the choice to sleep with her than it is for her to come over and give you the choice to steal something from her.
Fair enough. But anyways, we're getting wildly off topic now.
Wildly off topic, completely sidetracked. Basically, my point is that Cole is still a piece of shit.
Yeah. I relate
But I
to
find him more likable without Allison.
immensely so. Anyways, the next scene we have the mud wrestling. We can just skip this shit.
Yeah, we already talked about that.
And now we have Bela and Jace. And I gotta say, like, I know not every character can have, like, there's a limit to what you can do with characters. Bela, to me, just, I don't want to say wasted potential, but I feel like there's not a lot to her. She feels very much like Jace's, therapy sponge.
There's an element of her that is that, I think, but also she comes across as a little too perfect, in my opinion. Like every scene she's in, she's getting praised. She's making smart decisions. Has Bela made a mistake
I mean,
ever?
you could say that her failing to burn Cole was a mistake.
But that wasn't a choice. Like Cole got away.
Yeah. But that's like all I got. She doesn't really have any moments. But at the same time, she's such a minor character, even within the show, that her being perfect like this isn't that bad to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess my only feelings toward Bela are that like I kind of enjoy her. Like I feel like most of the time when she's in a scene, she makes it a little bit better. So
Yeah, she's okay. Jace getting a little bit of development. Like a lot of his like he kind of I think I know what I want. These two are like engaged. They're supposed to
yeah,
get married.
right.
I wish there was kind of a bit more of that aspect,
Yeah, they do lack. That's where I thought you were going to go
Mm-hmm.
when you first started bringing this up. I thought you were going to say that they should probably have more romance between the two of them. But also, I guess I could see an arranged marriage kind of going like this, where it's just two people where they like each other all right, they're okay with each other's company, but they're not like, especially when they're so young,
Yeah.
they haven't spent that much time around each other, like they're not maybe all that infatuated with each other.
Mm-hmm. And that's fair enough. I guess I'm just a little old fashioned. I like a bit of romance with my couplings and whatnot. But overall, the scene is pretty much Jace
That's
continuing
new fashioned.
I don't think middle fashion, because I feel like a lot of romance is gone these days.
I mean, like, in my mind, the pinnacle of romance is Renaissance period.
Anyways, so with that though, the meat of this conversation is more so Bela just telling him, you're not special because you ride a dragon. You're special because you came out of your mother's cunt.
Yeah, which is really heartwarming, really reassuring to know that really all your worth comes from, how you were born.
Yeah, who your mommy is.
Right. but accurate to the
Period.
time period. What the fuck? So we get a scene where it's just the fucking little sister just sleeping,
Dude,
just being cold.
I forgot this existed.
Yeah, I do remember being like irritated seeing the scene. Like, what the fuck? Why are they doing this?
I mean,
But
they're reminding us, like, oh, she's going through a lot of challenges in the Vale.
yeah, which again, it's like, why is no one looking for her ass?
Like, she's
fucking.
she's pretty damn important, and also shirking her duties by abandoning the ones she was told to keep safe and watch over.
Yeah, yeah. Like, why is she allowed to just run out into the wilderness and hang out?
It's quite impressive that nobody's found her.
Yeah.
Anyway, back over in Essos, we have a feast going on. We didn't talk about this in the initial first scene here in Essos, but I mean, there's nothing here, and she asks him to fuck his wives.
That's. Oh, unless you meant to say his.
There.
To fuck its wives.
Careful, please.
Is that not okay? I'm sorry.
You need to stop drinking when we have these recordings.
But yeah, that's about all that happens.
Yeah, but we just jump over to another kind of feasting scene where the dragon seeds are eating with royalty, and this, even though Ulf is annoying, it's the right kind of annoying, you know? Like, for me at least, I know I'm not really supposed to like Ulf and how he's acting, but I still find it entertaining. It's kind of like Joffrey and Ramsay, but to a lesser extent, obviously. Like, I'm supposed to hate them, but I love to hate them. Ulf is a character that I know is supposed to be annoying, but I kind of like this moment where he's annoying.
I don't know. I still found him a bit egregious. Mostly just because Rhaenyra is present.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that he's acting this way in front of the queen makes it, even though it's more mild than the way he was acting before, makes it equally egregious, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I would personally somewhat justify it because, I mean, how big would your dick feel if you became a dragon rider? Like, you were on, like, the bottom rung of Westeros society, and then you shoot all the way up to, like, number 2.
Yeah.
Like, I think that inevitably will give almost anyone a big ego. That's why I'm okay with this scene, but not as fond of the previous scene, where he kind of, like, shrinks under Jace. I feel like he needs to kind of keep that cocky, energy about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the reason the other scene, and then subsequently the reason this scene bugged me is because he had that moment of, like, I don't know, it seemed like self-reflection or realizing, like, what his actual status was. So then to come back to this scene and have him be acting braggadocious and egotistical again kind of bugged me.
Mm-hmm. And then, is it this moment or later? Yeah, it's later, but eventually Rhaenyra gets a message, and she begins to, presumably, I mean, we know this, but head on off to Harrenhal.
Yeah, along with Adam.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this whole kind of eating scene, like, it's just kind of hammering in points we already kind of know. Ulf is a bit of a jackass. Jace doesn't like this. Rhaenyra isn't obviously a fan as well, but she's trying to be as diplomatic about it as possible.
Right. Rhaenyra clearly trusts Adam more than the other dragon riders because of Orlyse's, I guess,
relationship.
Voucher or recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Hugh doesn't really have much in this scene. He's kind of there.
Yeah. little bit of fluff, but it's good fluff. It's good enough fluff.
Yeah, no serious complaints here.
Back over at Harrenhal, though, and fuck me, why does this show continue to try to attach itself to something far better than it, and at the same time far worse than it?
I would say it's mostly trying to attach itself to the far worse part.
And that's kind of what makes it more frustrating in a way, because you need to just forget how the previous franchise ended. If you
they've made this fucking prophecy way too plot relevant.
Mm-hmm.
The prophecy's motivating the entire thing. The prophecy's kind of the fundamental motivation of like most of the big playing characters, which is insane because it's retarded.
Yeah, it's just not great, and I don't like that a lot of Damon's character development change is from these bullshit visions. It's just not interesting to me.
I don't mind the visions.
The earlier ones were okay. I think there were still too many, but like this one, like, oh shit, now he understands that Rhaenyra has to be queen because shit's gonna hit the fan in 150 years.
Yeah, I think, this vision had to happen because they've set themselves on the prophecy being like the main motivation for the entire show, which sucks, but it is how it is, I guess. But yeah, I think that a lot of the middle stuff could have been cut out. There were certainly some visions where like you, I don't know, you're getting important, maybe not important, but you're getting Daemon characterization from the visions, but it's just not. It just starts to drag quite a bit. But the amount of time we've spent on Daemon Harrenhal isn't my least favorite.
Oh no, not by a long shot. But it's still, in my eyes, just frustrating. Especially since I really do enjoy a lot about Daemon. I think Matt Smith, despite some of the bad writing I think he's been given, like, he's consistently a good actor. I think if they gave him better writing, he would probably be my favorite character.
Yeah, and I wish that some of this time spent with Daemon had been used to kind of solidify his motivations a little bit more, because I still find the way he acts a little bit like confusing. It's like I don't really know why he does what he does, why he chooses to do certain things. Like, okay, so now all of a sudden this prophecy about things happening, like if you'd asked me before this episode whether Daemon cares about what happens 150 years in the future, I would have said no, but apparently he does. Apparently that matters to him a lot. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Also, Helena shows up for no reason.
Helena does show up for no reason, which seemed odd. I guess was that just so they could transition to the next scene?
I don't think so. I think it's like, oh, Helena has, she has visions. She's psychic and whatnot. Which, yeah, we kind of already knew that, but I guess this is just making it a bit more obvious for us.
I guess. And who is that tied up in the tree at like the start of the vision with the birthmark?
Ooh. That is Bloodraven.
Is that guy, is that, oh, so is that the person Bran meets?
So his real name is Brynden Rivers, but yes, that is the guy that Bran meets. And
that's like the big tree, and then that's where Hodor holds the door?
Yeah.
Okay. And so is that guy currently there?
No, he's not. He's not born yet.
Oh. Okay. So yeah, we get that part of the vision. And then, Helena showing up, because she doesn't, like, affect Daemon. Oh yeah, wait, why the fuck do we get Daenerys? Why is Daenerys here with the...
Because she's going to be a key part in saving the world. Interesting, Arya doesn't pop up in the vision. But anyways...
Yeah, why isn't the person who kills the Night King show up in his fucking vision?
Yeah, let's be fair here. You Targaryens didn't do jack shit. It was all the stars.
Yeah, but all the Targaryens did was give the Night King a dragon.
They got
rid of all they did. Yeah, they broke the wall and gave the Night King a dragon. Oh, fuck. God damn it. God damn it. Why did... It's one of those things where if Game of Thrones had ended and been really good the whole time, this stuff I might get hyped about.
I don't know. I don't know. I think even if Game of Thrones had ended well, I think, and like Hot D has been proceeded exactly the same as it is, this just feels like member berries to me.
It for sure, yeah. Well, the only reason it doesn't feel like member berries is because Game of Thrones Season 8 was so bad that I feel like there's no way they're calling back to it to try and make us feel nostalgic and happy.
But anyways, so after all that...
But yeah, just a final conclusion on the stupid fucking prophecy for this season. It's like, again, the Targaryens didn't stop the Night King. So why is this prophecy showing up in all of these visions? And why is it motivating so many characters' actions?
There are some hints that one of the motivations for Aegon to conquer Westeros was because of dreams that he or a relative had that winter is coming. So you gotta unite Westeros. Though I don't know. I was never a fan of that theory. I don't think it adds a whole lot. I honestly prefer Aegon conquering Westeros because, fuck it, it's there. I have dragons.
Yeah, I have dragons. Exactly.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely getting annoyed by this whole prophecy bullshit. And on top, but with this next scene, I actually think it's pretty okay between Aemond and Helena. Like, that's the thing. We actually don't see Helena interact with, like, anyone outside of Alicent often.
Yeah, it's true. So it is kind of nice whenever she has an actual scene with an actual character.
Like, she had one moment with Aegon, but that was kind of it. Everything else has been very much Alicent. She's been Alicent's tumor.
Are you talking about the scene where they walked past each other on the stairs?
I'm not even that. I'm talking about the scene where Aegon was asking her where their son was.
Oh, right. There was that scene in the first episode.
Yeah. I mean, them walking past each other was okay, but I don't know if I really count that.
Yeah, I was joking when I brought up that scene.
But anyway, so yeah, it's nice that she is talking to someone who is not Alicent.
Yeah, and the scene lets her actually, like, act for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, where she's not just saying monotone sentences. She shows some emotion in this scene. I was really, really happy with how the actress did in this scene, for sure.
Yep. And pretty much just spelling it out that she knows all the underhanded shit that Aemond is doing.
Yeah, she's clearly omniscient because she's autistic.
Yeah, and also this is an example, like, remember when Daemon was at Harrenhal? The very first time he, like, got there, and the Green Seer bitch gives her first prophecy. Do you remember what she said?
Was that when she gives him, you're gonna die here.
Yeah.
Right?
I hate that because it's such a boring ass, like, little, like, it's not a prophecy. It's not a seeing thing. It's just like, yeah, you're fucked. It's just like,
yeah, it's just a statement. And it's like, okay, what the fuck do you want him to do with that information?
But here we actually have, a bit of a prophecy that's much more vague in how it might like happen. She says, "You were swallowed up in the god's eye, and you were never seen again." Like, I know what that means, but I can also acknowledge like it's cryptic enough to where like, what like how's that going to play out?
Yeah. You were swallowed up in the god's eye, and you were never seen again. I wish I'd given that. I wish I'd given that a little bit more thought before we talked about it. But I do find like prophecies interesting. Never seen again.
I always found
especially like there's such a fantastic place for like obviously symbolism as well. Clearly, foreshadowing is a aspect of prophecy, and I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I just wish I'd given it a little more thought.
yeah. Overall, I think this is a good scene, even great, just because we get to see Helena in a much more different situation than what she normally is.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is one of my favorite Helena scenes.
I mean, there's not a lot of competition.
There's not a lot of competition. I'm not saying that it's like a great, groundbreaking scene or anything. I'm just saying it's one of my favorite Helena scenes.
Anyways, we're now flying to Harrenhal, where Rhaenyra is kind of confronting Daemon on what the fuck he's doing. And because of that final vision he got, he's all for Rhaenyra becoming queen.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah. Which, I don't know. This feels like it's supposed to be, for lack of kind of like the king in the north for Robb in a way, and Jon, but to a lesser extent. But like, it feels like that's kind of what they're going for. But I don't think this is earned.
Yeah, it's a little, especially if you think about it from like Rhaenyra's perspective. Like Daemon left, and like she was a little bit concerned about his loyalties when he left. And
Right. So I was talking about. So I had mentioned how I felt like this was the King of the North situation, but far less earned. And then you were kind of talking about it from Rhaenyra's perspective.
Right. Should I just start from the beginning?
Yeah, I think that's best.
Yeah. So from Rhaenyra's perspective, it's kind of a weird situation that Daemon's gone through, where like he left and she was a little bit like concerned that he might be getting up to no good, might not still be entirely on her side. And then they go an entire season without talking, and then she comes back to meet him, and he's just like fully on board with her.
Yeah.
Like she didn't do anything to like earn back his trust or earn back his favor. He just like decided that by himself without any input from her.
Yeah,
which is just kind of
it was
unsatisfying.
Yeah, I mean, and it's because of all the visions, and especially when all those who are now like kind of declaring for Rhaenyra here, this is the first they've ever like had any dealings with her. This is the first time many of them have ever seen her.
Oh yeah. As far as everybody else, I mean, I guess everybody else is just following what Daemon did.
Yeah, but even then, like because like that's the thing that made the King of the North scene so good is that these were characters who had spent plenty of time in battle and in the war with Robb. They've seen his character, and because of that, for other reasons, of course, but because of his accomplishments, they decide to name him King in the North. Whereas, like, all these chuckle fucks, like that's the thing, it's just not nearly as impactful. And maybe it's unfair for me to compare this to that scene, but I don't know. I feel like that's what I'm supposed to feel, but I don't feel it here.
Yeah, I don't know. My impression was that the only person whose kneeling really mattered here was Daemon's.
Yeah.
Because all the River Lords had already said that they're only going to follow Daemon because he was with Rhaenyra, because they thought Rhaenyra was a rightful queen. So it's like not shocking that the River Lords on her side. It almost feels weird that they all waited for Damon to kneel.
Yeah. Also, Broom needs to get dragged out here and executed.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could see Damon being like, "I was with you, brother, but I guess we gotta go with this bitch." I could see Damon not tossing him onto the bus, but I could also see Damon just chopping his head off unceremoniously. So, who knows?
Yeah. Anyways, the next scene we have, I'm actually a fan of it, and it's between Alan and Corlys. And I mean, it's, one could say it's very interesting to swap the race of Corlys and make him an absentee father. But anyways, the only reason I made that joke is because I was very confident you were going to make it at some point.
I honestly might have made that joke at some point, but I hadn't pre-planned it. Oh.
But anyways, I think this is a good scene. Alan, he's been more kind of like a side background character, so he gets to properly, like, he's a very stoic character, and here a bit more of the emotion, the anger and frustration that he has with Corlys comes out. And it's like 100% justified.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm starting to kind of realize that Corlys is just like they don't do as much with Corlys as I feel like they could. Like, he just kind of stands there and takes it, like he tells Adam that's enough or something like that. But he, like, between this and the way he treats Adam when Adam mounts the dragon, like, he's just very short and doesn't say much. And then thinking back on all of his scenes with Rhaenys, it's like he should be an important character, I think, but he doesn't really get up. He doesn't have very many opinions on things.
He has a few moments. I feel like since Rhaenys' death, he's been more prominent.
But, I mean, again, in this scene, he's like, I'm trying to help you. And then his son starts being like, yeah, but you're a piece of shit dad. And he's just like, that's pretty rude to say to me. You shouldn't say that to me. And it's like, I don't know. I wish he would, like, push back or defend himself in some way.
Well, I don't know.
Or admit fault and be like, yeah, I fucked up. Something.
One could say...
He doesn't do either.
One could say, I when it comes to, like, because he's mostly silent. He tells him you're dismissed, but Alan doesn't leave. He's just laying into Corlys like this. And I would argue that his silence is an admit of fault, even if he might not, like, say that himself. It's because he can't come up with a way to defend himself. He can't justify the actions he took.
For sure.
And he can't at all. Like, you maybe could have said, like, had I claimed you or whatever, then Rhaenys would have cooked you with her dragon or some shit. But no, she knew, so she was very accepting of the bastards. Yeah,
which is why I don't know. His silence just seems kind of bitch made. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like if there's any... Like, I've definitely felt like Corlys and the Velaryons in general have been way too bitchy in regards to how they just support the Blacks despite that constantly biting them in the ass.
That's true. The fact that they're supporting the Blacks at all is insane.
Because it's brought them nothing but problems. But this is one of the few scenes where I think Corlys being a little bit of a bitch is fine. I wouldn't justify his other moments, but this one, because he can't defend his actions, but he's too proud to admit fault.
Yeah, I guess I would have liked to, I don't know, see something from Corlys there.
Yeah, I'm very confident they're setting up for him to admit fault in the next season.
Yeah, maybe so. So we get a gay little scene with what's her face chasing a dragon.
You two of the they could have cut out most of these, but then it kind of immediately. Oh wait, no. So she sees the dragon, starts running after it, and then we're back at Dragonstone.
Oh fuck! We're here with this bitch.
I can't remember what this scene was.
It's probably just.
Oh right, this is just her sucking Rhaenyra's phantom dick. You've been doing great. You've been rewarded. The gods favor you. Fuck off.
Yeah, and I will confess, I was probably fairly neutral on Miss Arya throughout the season, but after watching EFAP talk about episode 3, I fully agree with them that the way Miss Arya rises to power here is completely retarded, and it does soil every scene that she's in from now on. Mm-hmm. Where it's what the fuck is this bitch who did nothing but lie to get your trust? Why is she the one person who you confide with and who you go to for advice consistently?
Well, it's because they made out.
Yeah, but again, it's why the fuck are you falling in love with this bitch?
Because she had a sad backstory. Her father raped her.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you need a sad story to get pity sex.
I associated sad stories more with winning American Idol, but potato, I guess.
Anyway, so Alicent makes it to Dragonstone, and fuck this scene in its entirety.
So, one thing I have to say that in defense of this scene is at least it's believable that Alicent could get to Dragonstone and have a chance of leaving alive.
Yes. Because
when Rhaenyra went to King's Landing, there was no reason at all to assume she could possibly leave alive. To this, even now, at this point in the show, I fully believe she died in King's Landing, and that the rest of this is Daemon's fever dream in Harrenhal.
I mean, that would be the most accurate way for things to play out. You are right that it's not egregious as the opposite, but that doesn't change to me that this is... even if the actresses are doing a good enough job with the shit they're given, it's still terrible. The crux of this issue is that Alicent is not at all likable, and because her motivations and her goals change every single day, I'm totally expecting that the next season she's not actually going to open the gates for her because she changed her mind. Something else came up.
Yeah, well, for sure, I feel like Alicent can't actually follow through on the promise she makes here, because then it's okay, the fucking war is over. Rhaenyra wins if Alicent's plan goes as she says it will. So it's I feel like it's almost guaranteed Alicent has to flop back to being Team Green again.
I've heard some theories, though, that what might happen is she's going to fail to open up King's Landing for Rhaenyra, and that's going to add more turbulence between the two, and it's going to just add more misunderstandings between the two.
Oh, more misunderstandings. Oh no, what's going to happen? Are they going to go to war over it? Is that what's going to happen? Is this show going to end with war? That would be terrible.
Yeah. But again, and maybe it's because for me personally, I have a very good relationship with my family, which obviously Alicent does not, but I cannot help but despise any woman for willingly kind of agreeing to let their son die.
So there is some potential Again, this is something I'd have to give more thought to. And, I was apologizing for not giving enough thought to the prophecy earlier. I take that back. I really don't feel like spending much time thinking about this show outside of when I watch it. But there is some symbolic defense you could make where it's like the archetypical vision of a mother is a mother's, like the archetypical mother sacrifice is to sacrifice your children to the world. If you think about the most obvious example would be to go to Christianity, where it's like Mary sacrificed her son to the world as like the archetypical sacrifice. And it's like, that's how you avoid the devouring mother who is far too controlling and far too overbearing, is you have to be willing to give your children out to the world with whatever that entails. And Alicent kind of falls into, I think she falls more over into the devouring mother, despite the fact that she's almost completely absent from her children emotionally, because she does try to control the way they act, right? At every point, anytime her children try to branch out and be independent and act independently from her, she's irritated and tries to like control that. And so I think that's at least part of why Alicent has ended up where she is because she has not been willing to quote unquote sacrifice her children and give them up. If that makes any sense. I know I got a little bit esoteric and vague there, and I don't mean everything I said there literally, and I would have to give it more thought to articulate it better, but yes is my answer.
I mean, I feel like there is a great big difference between letting your children out to the world and agreeing to open the gates so that way the people can come in and kill your children.
Yeah, there might be, again, I'd have to give it more thought. There might be a difference you can draw between like, because her sacrificing her children by like opening the gates is almost a purely selfish, where it's her looking for salvation through her children's sacrifice. Whereas, a more appropriate sacrifice would be giving up her own motherly love, like giving up the comfort in being an overbearing mother in order to give the children freedom.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Once, like, Rhaenyra tells her, like, hey, I have to take Aegon's head, and she weeps, and she's sad about that, I don't buy it. There's, like, it's like they want me to think that she's, like, a good mom, or, like, loves her children, when no, I don't think she does.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, the issue with Alicent is that her character is so confused. Like, her flip-flopping, to me, at the end of the day, yeah, I think a character that's inconsistent and flip-flops could be done well, but it just strikes me as the writers not knowing where Alicent actually falls.
Yeah. And it's just a shame. It's annoying. It's frustrating. They want her to be a pillar to this show when she just isn't capable at all to be like like one of the main faces. She's supposed to be the opposite coin to Rhaenyra. And while I of course have my issues with Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra by comparison is a far, far more interesting and developed character, I feel.
Well, the other thing is Rhaenyra is intrinsic to the plot. You can't have the show without Rhaenyra. Whereas if Alicent had been written out as like an unimportant side character halfway through season fucking 1, then it wouldn't have changed anything.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's the fact that she's so useless. I get like not every character has to be super competent, but her abilities dumbfound me in how imbecilic they are. Like,
Yeah.
it's like they try to, and that's the thing. They want to portray her as competent, but she just isn't in every single way. There is nothing good about her. There's no redeeming quality. She doesn't have a spine. She can't really seem to make choices on her own. She flip-flops every day of the week, deciding whether she wants to protect her family or is okay with them all dying. Like, just fuck her. I hate her.
The whole time you were talking there, I was really trying to think of like an amusing, good quality I could throw out, but I got nothing.
Anyways, after this, we kind of get the montage of the great big battle that we're not going to see till next year. We see armies marching. We see Ulf and Hugh and Adam getting dressed up. Not a whole lot to obviously comment. We do get to see a little quick, little bit of Darren flying over some high tower soldiers. So now so he exists. Great to see that he exists.
Oh, we do see Darren flying over high tower soldiers.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
We also see what's her face running towards the dragon with mud all over her face.
Yeah, forget about her. We see that some Stark reinforcements are coming across the twins.
We do see that.
The Greybeards.
Which, you know, I always love seeing some Starks.
Mm-hmm. I will say, and then we also see the Lannisters kind of marching off as well. Like, a lot of marching, a lot of setup. We see Tyland on a ship next to his new lesbian pirate lover queen.
And we end off, I mean, we see we see all the different...
Before we end off, Rhaena's face when she sees the dragon sheep stealer has got to be one of the funniest fucking things ever.
Yeah.
Like, just those eyes.
She does make a stupid face.
Those eyes are about to jump out. It's a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah. It is impressive that she managed to do that with her eyes, for real. She for real managed to do Looney Tunes IRL.
Mm-hmm. Here's something that I don't get, though. We see Otto. Remember how we see Otto?
Yeah, that's what I was about to talk about. Was why the fuck is Otto in prison?
I legit have no idea. Keep in mind, I read the books. I have no fucking clue.
Yeah, that was very confusing for me, that Otto is just... Because I guess they kind of hinted at it, because they talked about Aemon trying to call him back to be Hand of the King, but not being able to get in contact. But it's like, why the fuck is he in prison? He was just going back to Old Town, right?
Yeah, so I don't know, like, who would have nabbed him? Like, this is entirely new ground for me.
Yeah, and there's been no indication that Rhaenyra or anyone on her side has nabbed him. I guess the Greens down at Old Town are fighting a little bit of a rebellion.
Yeah, because some of the families of the Reach have declared for the Blacks, like the Beesburys. I don't think they've been mentioned, but the Tarleys as well.
Is the Reach the right? Because I thought the Reach was the Eyrie.
No, that's the Vale. The Vale is the
Eyrie. The Vale. Yeah. You're right.
The Reach is the Tyrells.
Yes, that's what I thought. I, for some reason, thought it had a different name. But yeah, so maybe he got nabbed by, like, the rebels?
Maybe, though, I don't know. I feel like this is going to overcomplicate things when it does not need to be. This is putting...
Yeah, I was going to say, if he got nabbed by the rebels, then I feel like this is, like, filler content for next season.
Anyways, I know we were planning on recording like another one after this, but honestly, I think we can kind of tackle our thoughts on the season as a whole, because it's already the longest video we've recorded. And so we can kind of just tack on this last bit, because I think we've kind of also been backtracking 2 previous episodes, 2 previous seasons. And just honestly, my general thoughts is this was a bad season. It had good moments, but this show isn't good. It's not a good show. People are blinded by the pretty dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people are actually kind of coming to our side this season. I don't know. I just watched the one. Hopefully, you didn't hear my roommate screaming in the background.
We did.
I just watched. He's playing. I assume Chivalry. I watched the one EFAP episode, and they seemed to think that people were having more of a negative opinion.
It's definitely more negative, because to put it in perspective, you kind of got you had, like, in the first season, you had people who really enjoyed the show, but then you had book purists like me who were not big fans about it. And as usual, the book purists are proven to be right, because now in this second season, like, I think specifically, like, the way I get most people's feedback is from the Reddit. And originally, r/House of the Dragon was very positive, and it was actually really hard to get any sort of criticism about the show. But this second season, oof, gloves are off. Nobody's happy about this.
Okay. So yeah, it does seem, I think, like, general opinion is turning towards more of a negative opinion, which on EFAP, they seem to be under the impression that the only reason people were feeling negative was because there wasn't enough action this season. And I'm just like, that couldn't be farther from the truth. The issue isn't that there's a lack of action. That's never been anyone's concern or complaint about any aspect of Game of Thrones, right? Mm-hmm. Like, nobody comes to the show for action necessarily. Well, also, the issue is that the writing sucks.
Also, you could argue that this season has more action than the previous season.
This season has a decent amount of action, for sure.
It has the first dragon battle,
right? Especially if you're considering dragon action as, like, being the pinnacle of what you can get from Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon in particular. Mm-hmm. Like, that's really what I'm here for, is to see dragons fight. And we got that. And we got a bunch of cool dragon stuff in episode 7.
Yeah.
So if you're coming here for cool dragon stuff, this season delivered. The issue is that the season fell flat in every other regard.
I honestly think the reason why they're not as critical on House of the Dragon, and they were also, in my eyes, nicer on the first season as well, it's because they covered this show after dog shit. Because the first season came out the same time as Rings of Power. And if you watch anything after Rings of Power, it's going to be magnificent. And now they're covering the second season of House of Dragon after going over Star Wars Acolyte, which is terrible. So I think it's it's like, you've been in your life with a 2 and then suddenly you're with a 4 and she's the most gorgeous thing ever. It's just one of those situations.
Yeah. And that was kind of the impression I got from listening to them discuss it, is like one good scene would come up and they'd be like, oh, they gush about how good one scene is. Like, I remember they talked about how much cool symbolism there is in fucking Alicent, like, dropping a dragon statue before Aemond goes and gets fucking torched. Or not Aemond, Aegon. And it's like, sure, there's, like, good moments here and there, good symbolism here and there, but it's like there's so much bullshit. And so they talked about liking the Cold War aspect of, like, the first few episodes, where it's like, ooh, are they going to, like, how are they going to try and prevent full-out war from happening? And it's like, that could be a cool aspect of the show to play with, but they didn't set it up properly. They set it up So they should have been prepared for war at the start of this season. Any hope of preventing war should have been gone by the start of this season. But for some reason, the writers decided to act like war was somehow going to be preventable.
Yeah, when there's no way it is preventable. And it doesn't help that even starting at like the first episodes, action is taken. Specifically, that's warlike. Kristen gets a bunch of men, goes out and starts sacking and destroying the castles that support Rhaenyra. Like, the war is on. You're not in a Cold War situation.
No. And again, I see where they're coming from. Like, it would be really cool if they kind of leaned into like a Cold War atmosphere where it's like they're trying not to use dragons because they're weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that. That could be a cool setup. That could be a cool show to watch. But that's not the show we're watching.
No. We're just seeing very inconsistent characters who are just changing what they want at the flip of a dime. There are highlights, of course. Let's be clear about that. There are highlights. Episode 7, very good, all things considered. Got my gripes with it, but overall, it's great. Episode 2, I really enjoyed that episode as well. We get some of the best scenes from Otto we've had in a long time. Fantastic. Otto, still great, even though they get rid of him in like the first after 3 episodes. But it's just, yeah, most the meat of the story, the main part of it just is not put together well.
Yeah.
You have Allison is the biggest example, but Corley's as well. He's like you kind of said, like he seems so minor despite his position as Hand of the King. Like Otto was Hand of the King, and I felt like he had more impact than Corley's did in this entire show in this season.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, Otto, it's insane to me that they would just take their best character and banish him for the entire season.
Especially when there was no reason to. He did not have to leave King's Landing at all.
He didn't have to leave King's Landing, and he didn't have to... He's like, even if he leaves King's Landing, he didn't have to not be in the whole season. Yeah.
Anyway, so now here's a question. Do you think it's worse or the same as the first season?
I'm gonna go ahead and say I think it's worse purely because it's dragging the baggage of the first season.
I definitely found it to be worse. There were aspects on the first season that I was not a fan of, but at that point, like, it's spilt milk, you can't put it back, you kind of have to deal with it and move on. Whereas this season, while I did still have those similar gripes, there just felt so much more that I hated. There was just so many more baffling moments and scenes that I do not think anyone can justify. I remember listening to Glidus, specifically on episode 3 with UltraSwiftX. They're fairly prominent Game of Thrones content creators. And they were talking about the scene where Rhaenyra was going to King's Landing. And they were talking about like, oh, that's so brave of her. Now, to be fair, they did still say it's also kind of stupid, but so brave. Like, they talked about it in such like a complimentary way. Like, no, there's people always say, there's, a fine line between stupidity and bravery. No, there isn't. It's actually a very broad line. You can be stupid and a coward and like, it's
more like a Venn diagram than a line.
In my eyes, there was like no intellectual justification for it. And because of that, no matter how brave you think it is, it just kind of shows the incompetency of, at best, Rhaenyra, at worst, the writers.
Yeah, I will say, episode 3 is the worst episode of this show, period. And I certainly... for me, that was like the breaking point where it's like, I can never really care about anything that happens in the show after this. You've fundamentally undermined every single plot point and every single character development that has happened in the show so far. So it's like, okay, now I don't care. I don't give a shit.
Yep. Well, anyways, I am in agreement that it's definitely worse than the previous season. Now, here's an even bigger question for you. Do you think it's as bad as season 8?
Episode 3 certainly reached season 8 levels of stupidity, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But on an episode to episode basis, I don't think, like, the thing about season 8 that's so kind of beautiful in a fucked up kind of way is that every single episode just manages to out stupid the episode before it. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and you're like thinking to yourself, this is as bad as it can possibly get. And then the next episode comes out and you're like, holy shit, it got worse. Whereas this season, it's got one moment where, like, this is as bad as it can possibly get, and then the rest of the season you're like, okay, yeah, that was as bad as it got. So I wouldn't say that the season is anywhere near season 8 of Game of Thrones yet, but episode 3 is.
Yeah, I was having a bit of a thought process. A part of me thought, when I first heard this question, a lot of people talking about it online, because that's actually becoming popular, where people have been saying, like, this is as bad as season 8. Can we get D&D back? Which I have like a slightly different opinion as far as bringing D&D back, but my gut reaction was like, season 8 was worse than this season of House of the Dragon. But then I started thinking, like, that might be a bit too subjective, because I think one of the reasons I hate season 8 so much is because of just how much of a failure it is when you look at those original 4 seasons, the characters, the writing, like, it's such a stark drop in quality that it just seems more of a massive juxtaposition. Whereas with House of the Dragon, it doesn't really have that, So
yeah, but I would say that there's a deeper element to why season 8 is so bad, and it's like not the juxtaposition is a large part of it, but it's there's like an element of, because the seasons previously had built up so much potential, it gave season 8 a ton to waste.
Yeah, I will say though, because I was having this thought, I actually recently rewatched the final season of season 8 and tried to, like, kind of judge it as its own thing in a vacuum, which I don't think is really the best way, but, like, trying to pit it against season 2. And no, season 8 really is just that bad. Even
it's so bad.
If I do my best, and granted, there's only so much I can do, but if I do my best to just look at it as its own thing, it's just that bad.
Yeah.
See, like, as much as I dislike House of the Dragon, it is not season 8 bad.
And so here's the fucked up thing about House of the Dragon is it's not good, but I think in today's age of TV shows,
it's good enough.
I would say like on a comparative scale, it's like a 5 or a 6.
Didn't we just
like a comparative scale? So not like my personal scale, but like on a scale comparing it to other recent shows.
Yeah, at least it's not as bad as Borderlands.
It's not as bad as Borderlands. It's not as bad as Acolyte.
Not as bad as Rings of Power.
It's not as bad as anything that fucking Amazon or Disney have put out in a couple of years.
You're not wrong. I feel like I definitely, at the very least, I don't regret watching it.
I don't know if I could agree with that, but but I don't watch any other Western media because I consistently regret watching it. So there's that.
You're a fucking weeb.
There's also that. I am a weeb.
But anyways, I think we laid out things pretty well. This is our longest recording. No surprise there. But as always, DJ Fella, it's great to have you. I hope you get many success in what's to come. Maybe eventually you'll actually start that YouTube channel of yours.
Maybe.
But with that, to everyone who made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Have a good night and be safe.